Greetings, superior beings, greetings, supreme being. We are all the human race. Our common enemy is death. Welcome on Play. I'm Ulrich Hoffman, and this is the broadcast. Judge lifts mask mandate for planes and trains. So that mask mandate is lifted, and I'm just going to read some articles. First article that I'm showing you all is this. Reuters.com, April 19, 2022. US will no longer enforce mask mandate on airplanes, trains after court ruling. Second, BBC News, building Britain's caliphate, bye-bye children. US judge throws out Biden mask mandate for planes and trains. 17 hours ago. New York Post, nypost.com. Judge's decision to void mask mandate prompts mid-flight cheers among flyers. We'll watch the video also. Perhaps there's a longer version of that. I saw that with the Brave search engine. And NBCnews.com, here are the airlines dropping mask mandate. So it's a sort of comparison of all these articles. I thought volume was in the middle, so I thought let's turn that down, but that wasn't necessary. It's muted. United, Delta, and American are some of the airlines that dropped mask requirements Monday, the first break from such COVID-19 restrictions in the skies in nearly 2 years. No more lethal bacteria bucket choke napkins in the cancer-causing Tachinelus planes. And I think also in trains, right? So, it reminds me of 1918 when all these people were wearing masks. Let's see. 1918 masks. The so-called Spanish flu pandemic. So they definitely wore them back then as well. And of course, I've covered it in previous broadcasts. SLQ and the Spanish flu. It's not letting me scroll. Sometimes it hangs a bit. It's weird. So people should get a mask exemption if they become dizzy or get headaches when wearing the masks. Isn't everyone? And of course, people that wear a so-called surgical mask breathe in 8,000 parts per million of CO2 carbon dioxide, which is 4 times the amount, 2,000 ppm, the amount at which people become drowsy, dizzy, according to OHS. Well, what does it stand for? OHS 2000 ppm. So measuring is knowing the lying, and people can measure that with a CO2 carbon dioxide meter. OSHA, it's OSHA supposedly, is that correct? I can check again what that stands for. Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Okay. So yeah, they were definitely wearing these back in 1918. So we see a repetition. as the 1918 flu emerged cover-up and denial helped it spread. History. Yeah, well, bacterial pneumonia caused most deaths in 1918 influenza pandemic, according to the National Institutes of Health. Examination revealed a spectrum of tissue damage. Let's start here. I can also use the text-to-speech engine. This is nih.gov, National Institutes of Health. And then I'll prepare the text-to-speech engine. Okay, let's read this then.
NIID co-author and pathologist Jeffrey Taubenberger, MD, PhD, examined lung tissue samples from 58 soldiers who died of influenza at various U.S. military bases in 1918 and 1919. The samples, preserved in paraffin blocks, were recut and stained to allow microscopic evaluation. Examination revealed a spectrum of tissue damage ranging from changes characteristic of the primary viral pneumonia and evidence of tissue repair to evidence of severe, acute, secondary bacterial pneumonia, says Dr. Taubenberger. In most cases, he adds, the predominant disease at the time of death appeared to have been bacterial pneumonia. There also was evidence that the virus destroyed the cells lining the bronchial tubes, including cells with protective hair-like projections, or cilia. This loss made other kinds of cells throughout the entire respiratory tract, including cells deep in the lungs, vulnerable to attack by bacteria that migrated down the newly created pathway from the nose and throat.
Yeah, I reported about it before. Bacteria is growing on your mask. MSN.com, 20th of November 2020. And then there was something about lipopolysaccharide. COVID-19 masks causing rise in bacterial pneumonia, Principia-scientific.com. Well, of course, if they don't clean their mask, wear a clean mask every time, or if they don't replace that mask often enough or wash it enough, then they're gonna get bacterial pneumonia, right? So that could be right. Okay, SARS-CoV-2 spike protein binds to bacterial lipopolysaccharide and boosts pro-inflammatory activity. PubMed study number 33295606. Some people can check it for themselves. I might not add the link to the description. I just want to read some articles. So yeah, then we can begin with the Reuters article. Let's see how fast I can copy that to read it with the text-to-speech engine. Ooh, I reached the article limit already. It's the first Reuters article I read today. Well, then we just can read the intro, basically.
U.S. will no longer enforce mask mandate on airplanes, trains after court ruling by David Shepardson, Rajesh Kumar Singh and Jeff Mason. 4-minute read. Travelers reclaim luggage at Denver airport. A commuter wears a mask while riding the subway as cases of the infectious coronavirus Delta variant continue to rise in New York City. New York travelers reclaim luggage at Denver airport. One half-file photo. A commuter wears a mask while riding the subway as cases of the infectious coronavirus Delta variant continue to rise in New York City, New York, U.S., July 26, 2021. Reuters, Andrew Kelly. Washington, Chicago, April 18. Reuters, the Biden administration will no longer enforce a U.S. mask mandate on public transportation, after a federal judge in Florida on Monday ruled that the 14-month-old directive was unlawful, overturning a key White House effort to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Reporting by David Shepardson, Mike Stone, Jeff Mason and Jason Lang in Washington and Rajesh Kumar Singh in Chicago. Writing by Chris Sanders and Rajesh Kumar Singh. Editing by Nick McPhee, Heather Timmons, Bill Burkrot and Bernard Orr. You have reached your article limit.
Well, at least we can still read the BBC article. Was my mic on? It was not intentional.
U.S. judge throws out Biden mask mandate for planes and trains. Published 17 hours ago. Share related topics. Coronavirus pandemic stock pic of a woman on a plane in a mask. Image source, Getty Images. A federal judge in Florida has struck down the Biden administration's mask mandate for airplanes and other forms of public transit, calling it unlawful. U.S. District Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell said the National Public Health Agency had exceeded its legal powers in issuing the mandate. The U.S. Transit Authority said it would now no longer enforce mask wearing. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, just last week extended the mandate until 3 May. Judge Mizell is based in Florida, but federal judges can issue rulings that block nationwide government policies. Her order on Monday effectively removes the masking requirement in all airports, trains, taxis and transit hubs. Some social media users reported that the order was announced on aircraft mid-flight, prompting travelers to applaud and remove their masks. On Monday, the president of the Association of Flight Attendants appealed for calm and consistency in airports and on planes to avoid confusion and chaos. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki called the decision disappointing and noted that the CDC still recommends travelers cover their mouths and noses. Psaki added that the Justice Department would make any determinations about litigation following the order. The CDC did not immediately respond to a request for comment to Monday's ruling. Last week, U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy said the mandate had been extended into May because of rising COVID-19 cases. The lawsuit was first brought in July 2021 by the conservative group Health Freedom Defense Fund, HFDF, and 2 Florida residents who said wearing masks increased their anxiety and panic attacks. The plaintiffs argued that the CDC mandate was arbitrary and capricious because it gave exemptions to certain groups, like children under 2 years of age, but not to others. In her ruling, Judge Mizell, who was appointed by former President Donald Trump, found that the CDC had improperly invoked what is known as the good cause exception, allowing the agency to skip public notice and comment on the mandate. Because our system does not permit agencies to act unlawfully even in pursuit of desirable ends, Judge Mizell wrote, invoking another case, the court declares unlawful and vacates the mask mandate. Shortly after the legal decision was issued, the Transportation Security Administration, which runs U.S. airport security, confirmed it would no longer enforce the mask mandate. United Airlines, Delta Airlines, Alaska Airlines and American Airlines said face coverings would no longer be required on domestic flights and certain international flights. Since the CDC first issued a public health order in February 2021 requiring masks for travelers, more than 7,000 unruly passenger incidents have been reported, -70% of them involving masking rules, according to the Federal Aviation Administration. Additionally, ride-hailing apps Uber and Lyft both announced that passengers and drivers are no longer required to wear masks while using the services, effective immediately. You can now ride without a mask and use the front seat if you need to, Uber said in a statement. While mask usage is still recommended, we've updated our COVID safety policies. Let's move forward, safely together. Lyft, for its part, said that masks are now optional. We know that everyone has different comfort levels, and anyone who wants to continue wearing a mask is encouraged to do so, the company said. The Biden administration's COVID-19 mandates have had mixed success in the court system. The Supreme Court in January blocked the White House from enforcing its sweeping vaccine or test rule for employees at large private companies. But the Biden administration's requirement that all federal employees be vaccinated against COVID-19 was upheld on appeal earlier this month.
So that's the BBC article. And you can also find at the bottom of the article the link to Time to Remove Face Mask Law, Health Secretary. What difference will lifting face mask laws make? Well, you can open them and then put the links in the description after I finish this broadcast. First, New York Post with a video, and there's a longer version of that somewhere, I think. nypost.com trying to copy the text. Judge's decision to void mask mandate prompts mid-flight cheers among flyers. Hooray! I don't know if Mexico and Cambodia are the only countries that don't require testing, but that's something to look out for as well. What's this? Johnny sinks to new depths. Stars testimony, a disaster, class in acting, according to bbc.com. This way, so I can have that nice preview. Okay, let's read it.
Judge's decision to void mask mandate prompts mid-flight cheers among flyers by Aaron Bush. April 19, 2022 7:26 a.m. Updated people cheer as they hear mask mandate on planes is lifted. 004-033. More on, airlines ditch the masks and breathe easier already. It's time to face the facts. Judge says it will only appeal mask mandate ruling if CDC gives go-ahead. Here's where you still need a mask after judge voids federal mandate. Rep. Omar fires back at conservative snowflakes after mid-flight Easter service. Airline cabins erupted in applause as jubilant pilots informed passengers they were free to remove their face coverings shortly after a Florida federal judge voided the Biden administration's mask mandate for planes, trains and buses. Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell, an appointee of President Donald Trump, ruled Monday that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention failed to properly explain its decision to impose the mandate or follow proper rulemaking procedures.
Well, one theory is that it's just another controlled opposition thing. They only do it, they have this legal procedure basically, so that others cannot press charges in these matters anymore, and of course, they're going to impose it again. That's the theory.
Pilots wasted no time in letting pandemic query passengers know via intercoms that they could remove their masks, setting off sky-high celebrations in the cabins, Newsweek reported. SAS TV reporter Erica Stapleton posted a video on Twitter in which Kool and the Gang's celebration is heard being played over the loudspeaker. When you're actually on a flight and they tell you the federal mask mandate is lifted for travelers. Lots of cheering from passengers on board, Stapleton wrote Monday night. Ben Diedrich, press secretary for Sen. Dan Sullivan, Air Alaska, posted a short clip of passengers applauded a similar announcement from the flight deck. A wonderful moment mid-flight on at Alaska Air today. He wrote. Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell, an appointee of President Donald Trump, ruled Monday that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention failed to properly explain its decision to impose the mandate. Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell, an appointee of President Donald Trump, ruled Monday that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention failed to properly explain its decision to impose the mandate. United States District Court for the pilot of the flight made the announcement on the loudspeaker mid-flight announcing the end of the ban. The pilot announced the end of the ban on the loudspeaker mid-flight. Brian Prawl, mega passengers inside LAX Airport at first passengers moments after mask mandate is now lifted across all travel in the USA. Passengers inside LAX Airport moments after the mask mandate was lifted across the U.S. Brian Prawl / Mega ladies and gentlemen, this is your pilot speaking. This is the most important announcement I've ever made. The federal mask mandate is over. Take off your mask if you choose. Dietrich quoted the pilot as saying. Passenger Randy Cook posted a photograph of beaming fellow flyers. They just announced on my flight the mask mandate for flights is over. He said in a tweet. Several passengers cheered and removed their masks immediately right after the announcement. Several passengers cheered and removed their masks immediately after the announcement. Brian Prawl, mega passengers board the first flight where masks are no longer required. Passengers board the first flight where masks are no longer required. Brian Prawl, mega passengers who were mid-flight when the COVID-19 mask mandate was struck down erupted into cheers and applause. Passengers who were mid-flight when the COVID-19 mask mandate was struck down erupted into cheers and applause. Brian Prawl, mega passenger Logan Kringle posted a selfie aboard a flight from Las Vegas to Minneapolis. The only time I've ever clapped on an airplane. Cheers. Life is good. He wrote using the username @DocBartender. Another passengers, Martin Avila, tweeted that a flight attendant just paused with tears announcing masks are optional. His counterpart walked up to him and said, "It's been 2 years of this, it's going to come out." However, some people took issue with the decision that travelers can ditch their masks. Airplane cabins broke out into applause mid-flight as jubilant pilots announced over intercoms that the federal transportation mask requirements had been struck down by a judge. Airplane cabins broke out into applause mid-flight as jubilant pilots announced over intercoms that the federal transportation mask requirements had been struck down by a judge. Twitter, @RandyCook. Scott Hechinger, a civil rights attorney, was traveling from Florida to the Big Apple on Monday when the judge's ruling was announced. The decision is stupid and nonsensical. And outcome determinative. And it's outrageous a single judge in one state can make national health policy, he said in a tweet. But I'm currently dealing with the immediate impact of the decision. So not really in the mood to get into more, Hechinger added. He told Insider in an email that he found the decision even more outrageous that it's happening at a time when a new variant is raging and so many, including friends and colleagues, and their young children, are extremely sick. Hechinger added, "I don't feel safe." Walt Hechton, an assistant professor of education policy, described his very bizarre moment. On airplane, pilot comes on over intercom, announces the federal mask mandate is over, so take your masks off and celebrate. He wrote that half the plane cheers, high fives, other half stews, keeping masks on. A person near me starts crying, clearly worried. Meanwhile, Saskia Popescu, a biodefense professor at Schar School of Policy and Government at George Mason University, argued that masking up is important in enclosed spaces for lengthy periods amid an uptick in COVID-19 cases. We may want to be done with COVID, but forcing our way through it is myopic and frankly ridiculous, she wrote. Pilots wasted no time in letting pandemic-weary passengers know via intercoms that they could remove their masks. Pilots wasted no time in letting pandemic-weary passengers know via intercoms that they could remove their masks. Brian Prawl, Mega. People are still getting sick, going to hospitals, and dying. We need primary prevention, like masks plus vaccines. Personally, I'll continue to wear a mask on airplanes and public transportation, Popescu added. On Monday evening, the Biden administration confirmed that travelers can ditch their masks pending a review of the ruling. The agencies are reviewing the decision and assessing potential next steps. In the meantime, Today's court decision means CDC's public transportation masking order is not in effect at this time, an administration official said. Several people have announced their displeasure that the mandate was struck down, saying cases will rise again. Several people have announced their displeasure that the mandate was struck down, saying cases will rise again. App photo, Namwaha.
Okay, so this is from Twitter. While there are counties requiring masks in public, no law requires a specific type or particulate rating of mask. The general public are making their own masks, including open mesh. No fines have been issued while wearing them in public. This is about compliance, not safety, they write.
File therefore, TSA will not enforce its security directives and emergency amendment requiring mask use on public transportation and transportation hubs at this time. CDC recommends that people continue to wear masks in indoor public transportation settings. Almost immediately, Alaska Airlines announced that masks would be optional for travelers and employees alike. United Airlines quickly followed suit, announcing that masks were no longer required on domestic flights and select international flights, depending upon the arrival country's requirements. A passenger wearing a mask waits at the COVID-19 testing site at the International Flights Terminal of the Los Angeles Airport. A passenger wearing a mask waits at the COVID-19 testing site at the International Flights Terminal of the Los Angeles Airport. EPA/ETI and LAR on American Airlines, Delta Airlines and Southwest Airlines, the three carriers with the most passengers pre-pandemic, also made masks optional Monday night. The chief executive officers of all the major airlines called on the Biden administration last month to ditch the mask mandate because the requirement did not reflect the current environment.
Okay. Let's watch the video with this article. So I hope it lasts, but I have my sincere doubts.
No longer required in airplanes, trains, buses, or any other mode of transportation. So enjoy it.
Okay, people can also buy a mesh mask, super thin, super breathable, or use a face shield if they have a mask exemption card. And, well, certain scientific studies we just cannot mention, I guess. And what was the other thing? Oh yeah, then there are two other articles, BBC.com articles, that are in relation to this subject. And supposedly Brave is still loading them. Let's see. I'll hit reload. There's no use in showing a wide screen, the page not loading. So I just show you this image. It's, yeah, it's new. So this could become a major trend, anti-mask masks, if they decide to impose it again. What some would consider an unlawful mandate for several reasons. And of course, you could argue they must study or the government must demand an independent study into what the effects of mask wearing are on acquired natural immunity and innate immunity. But we already know, and measuring is knowing the lying. So they want to pretend CO2, carbon dioxide, is so bad. Let them have actions that are congruent with that, that are in line with that. When it comes to these bacteria bucket choke napkins. And of course, they've experimented on children like the Nazis did with their emergency use authorized experimental inoculations, injections. Some people don't want to call it a vaccine. But somehow they just don't care. So, the next article is a BBC article. It has finally loaded. Face masks. Time is right to remove legal restrictions, says Humza Yousaf. Could also play the video and then read the article. Is that an idea? Let's see if that works. Überhaupt. It's loading, supposedly. So perhaps I'll begin with the article anyway.
Face masks. Time is right to remove legal restrictions, says Humza Yousaf, published 2 days ago. Share related topics. Coronavirus pandemic. Media caption. Humza Yousaf says Scotland appears to be exiting the latest wave of COVID. Scotland's Health Secretary has said the time is right to remove the last remaining COVID legal restrictions. The rule on wearing face masks in many indoor places and on public transport has now become guidance, almost 3 months after the rule was lifted in England. Humza Yousaf said although hospital admissions were still very high, the law was no longer necessary. However, he said most Scots would continue to wear a mask voluntarily. On Thursday, Public Health Scotland reported more than 2,000 COVID positive.
So he already happens to know that somehow. Did he do an opinion poll or something?
On Thursday, Public Health Scotland reported more than 2,000 COVID positive patients in hospitals across the country. Infection rates. Speaking to BBC Radio Scotland's Sunday show, Mr. Yousaf said the latest data showed Scotland was exiting the current wave. He said, "It's been pretty relentless over the last 4 to 5 months given the emergence of Omicron and BA.2. But we can say based on ONS data, based on case data, we are beginning to see reductions in the hospital occupancy for those with COVID, although the numbers are still very high. Based on that, we are taking the right decision by removing the last legal requirement, but replacing it with very strong guidance. Face mask rules and COVID passes in England. COVID in Scotland. The latest cases lifting of Scottish face mask laws confirmed the lifting of the face masks rule had been delayed twice in Scotland amid record levels of COVID cases and high numbers of people in hospital with the virus. In January, it was slightly relaxed in Scotland for adults taking part in organised activities with children under 5. Around the same time, the UK government had scrapped the rule in England altogether. Then at the beginning of April, people in Scotland no longer had to wear a face covering in places of worship. This Easter Sunday was the first in 2 years when large numbers attended church without the rule in place. Canon Gerald Sharkey at St Andrew's Cathedral in Glasgow. Image source, Getty Images. Image caption, Canon Gerald Sharkey at St Andrew's Cathedral in Glasgow pictured in March. However, going forward, Mr. Yousaf said he believed most Scots would continue to wear masks in high-risk settings to protect vulnerable people. He said, "I think there will be some people who won't, and we have to accept that is the case."
So I just want to show this now. The video has completely disappeared and the letters BBC have replaced it.
But you have to remember it's been very clear we can't keep a legal restriction in place for a minute longer than it necessarily.
Oh, it was on that BBC for all the time that I was reading this article. After I reloaded it, it was like a minute or so or longer. And then when I say something about it, buff, there is the video.
Needs to, that we have to act proportionately when it comes to the. But you have to remember it's been very clear we can't keep a legal restriction in place for a minute longer than it necessarily needs to, that we have to act proportionately when it comes to the law. But I've got great faith in the vast majority of the Scottish public. The Health Secretary was asked whether the lifting of all rules could mean that more people who develop COVID symptoms may feel pressured to go into work. He said the overwhelming majority of businesses had acted responsibly throughout the pandemic. If you're pressuring someone with symptoms that we know are associated with COVID, if they are forced to come into the workplace, then they could end up infecting the entire workforce, and that's not good for your business, he said. Banner image reading more about coronavirus rules. What are the restrictions in your area? Easing. What are the current rules? Cases. Where are the latest cases in Scotland? WHO. The people who have died with COVID-19.
Well, perhaps it's the Brave search or the Brave browser. I had already turned this off, Brave Shields. That didn't work either. Turn it off again. Reload. I don't have that many tabs open. Perhaps it is a extension. Not an extinction, but an extension. Causing probe. But I think I tried it once, turning all my extensions off, and then it still occurred. So, next article. Not loading either. Come on. Well, we can just wait for it, basically. So there are alternatives to the bacteria bucket choke napkins. And the other article, the other BBC article, loaded as well. Any publicity is good publicity, they say. Not gonna use another browser for this. It appears to be loading. Okay, now it has disappeared again. I was trying to select the text to read it. Perhaps there are forces at work that don't want us to read the BBC article. Perhaps really good people. I think it will load again, but I hit reload perhaps 2 times, so perhaps it's... I'm now trying to select the text. So, some people have already compared the countries where they had all these measures imposed. You had DeSantis in Florida, etc. So many people already know what's going on, what they're trying to do to us all.
What difference will lifting face mask laws make? By Stuart Nicholson, BBC Scotland News. Published 2 days ago. Share related topics. Coronavirus pandemic, man wearing face mask. Image source, Getty Images. Scotland's face mask laws have been lifted, meaning there is now no legal requirement for people to cover their faces when they are in indoor settings such as shops and supermarkets or on public transport. The move brings the country into line with the rest of the UK, but First Minister Nicola Sturgeon is still strongly advising people to continue wearing face masks voluntarily. What difference will the change actually make? In reality, face mask laws.
In reality, the only effective PPE, personal protective equipment, is a hazmat suit with SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. Virus particles are too small. So none of these protective face masks offer 100% protection. 0 of them do.
Have not been strictly enforced in Scotland, with people generally going unchallenged by staff if they fail to wear one on a train or in a supermarket. Experts believe making their use a legal requirement rather than voluntary made it more likely that people would comply, even if they were extremely unlikely to be fined for not doing so. With the legal requirement now gone, it remains to be seen how widespread the use of face masks will continue to be. Anecdotal evidence from England suggests that far fewer people are wearing them now than in the past, despite the UK government issuing similar advice to M. Sturgeon on the importance of continuing to use them after the legal requirement was removed. People in Scotland have generally been pretty good at following health advice during the pandemic, even if it has not been compulsory. There has never been a legal requirement to self-isolate after testing positive, for example, but most people did so regardless. Despite the desire for things to return to some sort of normality now that the virus does not pose the same risk of death or serious illness as in the past, M. Sturgeon hopes that people will choose to continue covering their face in public. She has stressed that levels of the virus and the resulting pressure in the NHS remains very high, and that wearing a mask helps to keep vulnerable people safer. But behavioral psychologists say people often copy what others are doing, and as more people stop wearing masks, then it becomes harder to be the odd one out. So should I still be wearing a face mask? Bar staff image source, Getty Images. This ultimately comes down to how much risk you are willing to take, and how much risk you are willing to pose to other people. The government says it strongly advises people to continue wearing face coverings in crowded or enclosed spaces where you are likely to come into contact with people you do not normally meet. This includes places like shops, supermarkets, bars, restaurants, and public transport where it is difficult to keep apart from other people and where there is often poor ventilation. People will also have to continue wearing face coverings in healthcare settings, such as GP surgeries, hospitals, and care homes. And secondary school pupils will still have to cover their faces in communal areas such as corridors. Should I change the type of mask I'm using? Graphic comparing 3 types of mask. The highly infectious new BA2.
Well, why I would argue that's an illegal mandate is also clear from this video I have here on the channel Perfect Society on YouTube. Click on videos to see all the videos. And then we can scroll down. Is it on here? Yeah. Johns Hopkins doc says natural immunity 27 times more effective than vaccine. Professor Marty Macquarie of Johns Hopkins University. And why are they not listening to these people? So that's on Perfect Society. Johns Hopkins doc says natural immunity 27 times more effective than vaccine. So how are they going to build up natural immunity when they're all isolated from each other? How can they build up naturally acquired immunity?
Omicron subvariant was largely responsible for the extremely high levels of COVID in Scotland in March, which saw the number of people in hospital with the virus hit record highs. It is able to transmit itself very quickly because people need to inhale far fewer virus particles to become infected than they did with previous COVID strains. This means surgical and fabric masks offer less protection than they did in the past because they allow more of the virus to get through than high-filtration respirator masks. Dr. Christine Tate-Burkard, an infectious diseases expert at the University of Edinburgh, said wearing a medical or fabric mask still helps to keep other people safe because they stop some shedding of the virus into the environment. But she recommends that people at higher risk from the virus, such as the elderly or those with underlying health conditions, should upgrade to an FFP2 respirator mask to give themselves the best protection. Single-use surgical masks, which are often blue and are widely available to buy in shops, generally offer better protection to the wearer than reusable fabric masks. If you do wear a reusable fabric mask, it should be made of 2, or ideally 3, layers and form a good fit around the nose and mouth. Scarves, bandanas or religious garments are likely to be less effective if they do not fit securely around the mouth and nose and are of a single layer. Is this the right time to be lifting the rules? Shopper's image source, Getty Images. Image caption: about 80% of people in Scotland are thought to have had the virus during the pandemic. The face mask clause had originally been due to be lifted on 21 March, but the move was delayed twice as infection rates soared. The number of daily reported COVID cases in Scotland hit about 12,000 in March, but the figure is now down to about 4,000.
So it's about naturally acquired immunity, not just to COVID, but to many diseases. How are they going to build that up? When all these mandates and rules are imposed, the social distancing, some call it anti-social distancing rule, the bacteria bucket choke napkins, and of course the lockdowns, which according to a Nobel Prize winner, Michael Levitt, cause more problems than COVID itself. Potentially also 1.4 million tuberculosis deaths due to these measures. I've covered it more in depth in previous broadcasts. Also, Minister Müller and others have warned about these measures. So I advise you all to watch my previous broadcasts, also on the channel by name of Perfect Society and on this channel by name of Play, especially the video of the two doctors. I'll open my other channel. It takes a few seconds to load, but it's there already practically. So here we see the live stream I'm doing now. Judge lifts mask mandate for planes and trains. Dr. Ryan Cole and Dr. Richard Urso testify before Tennessee House Health Subcommittee. That's a really good video to watch. I advise you all to watch that. And, well, there are some videos for Dutch people on this channel as well about the mask gate, basically. Mondkapjesaffaire. Mask affair. Some politicians had a deal with this person, we see on this picture also. And they made 20 mil, though they said they would do it for free. According to the mainstream media news articles that I've covered in these broadcasts. And it was a debate in the Dutch parliament, basically, the Dutch Tweede Kamer. Zelensky says Ukraine ready to discuss neutrality status. That's one option. To bring peace to the Ukraine, Jesuit coadjutors Biden, Zelensky, Putin. Russia-Ukraine President Zelensky bans men aged 18 to 60 from leaving country. Some would consider that a war crime as well. They're not military and they're separated from their wives and children. So that's covering it in this broadcast on the channel by the name of Play.
Despite the latest figures showing that there were just over 2,000.
So we'll keep on uncovering the truth about all of this, including the bacteria bucket choke napkins.
Despite the latest figures showing that there were just over 2,000 COVID patients in Scottish hospitals, only 20 of these were in intensive care, which suggests that people are much less likely to become seriously ill than in the past. With about 80% of people in Scotland having now had the virus, Dr. Tate Burkard said she believed the country has now reached a tilting point where it effectively has herd immunity, which she said is likely to mean the number of cases will fall without any additional measures having to be in place. She said Scotland could largely be on course to follow the example of the Netherlands and Germany, where cases have fallen sharply in recent weeks despite all legal requirements including the wearing of face coverings being removed. Dr. Tate Burkard said it would therefore now be too big a force to fine people for not wearing a face mask. She added, "I think recommendations for people to wear masks in high-risk environments is the right course of action. It doesn't need that legal enforcement anymore."
I'm reloading Brave search results. So other reports about this cbsnews.com. Do you have to wear a mask on your next flight? mass confusion as mask mandates remain at LaGuardia JFK. 11 hours ago, New York Post. sfchronicle.com COVID in California. SFO bound passengers video shows moments. Travel mask mandate struck down, what it means in California. Patch.com. We've read the Reuters article. Dr. Sanjay Gupta reacts to, quote, abrupt, unquote, end of mask mandate for travelers. Edition.cnn.com. US judge strikes down CDC mask mandate amid COVID-19. That's a 2-minute WION video. I recognize the logo, so let's take a look at that then. And judge voids US mask mandate for planes. Other travel, YouTube. 5 updates, mask mandate for airlines and travelers no long. Which US airlines dropped their mask mandate? New York Times. Yeah, I thought I had something like that on. I already pre-selected an article, I thought. Okay, that's this one. And perhaps there are others that I forgot. I think it's just this one. I already covered the others. So this is NBCnews.com. Here are the airlines dropping mask mandates.
Here are the airlines dropping mask mandates. United, Delta and American are some of the airlines that dropped mask requirements Monday, the first break from such COVID-19 restrictions in the skies in nearly 2 years. 350/05:21. Tap to unmute link copied April 19, 2022, 3:16 p.m. CEST by Marlene Linthang. Major U.S. airlines, including Delta and United, tossed out mask requirements on Monday after a federal judge struck down the Biden administration's transportation mask mandate, giving customers and staff the first respite from the coronavirus restrictions in nearly 2 years. After U.S. District Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell in Florida ruled the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's travel mask mandate was unlawful, the White House said the CDC's public transportation mask order was no longer in effect. It said the Transportation Security Administration would not enforce the rule on public transport and transportation hubs while the ruling is reviewed. The CDC's mask mandate was enacted in February 2021 and most recently extended through May 3. However, airlines had their own requirements in place for almost 2 years. The rollback on masks was met with an eruption of cheers and applause aboard a Delta flight from New York City to San Francisco when it was announced over the intercom, with one keen customer shouting "finally." It may be a sigh of relief for some airlines that have grappled with over 7,100 unruly passenger reports in the skies since January 2021, the vast majority related to mask mandates, according to Federal Aviation Administration data. What's the possible impact of lifting the CDC's mask mandate?
Finally!
April 19th, 202,203 hours 3 minutes. Delta Airlines employees and customers may continue wearing masks if they so choose, under Delta Airlines' new policy unveiled Monday evening. We are relieved to see the U.S. mask mandate lift to facilitate global travel as COVID-19 has transitioned to an ordinary seasonal virus, the company said in a statement. Thank you for your support in complying with the federal mask mandate and keeping each other, and our customers, safe during the pandemic. United Airlines United said, masks are no longer required on domestic flights, select international flights, dependent upon the arrival country's requirements, or at U.S. airports. Alaska Airlines said guests and employees have the option to wear a mask while traveling in the U.S. and at work. While we love to see your smiling faces in the airport and on board, we respect your decision to keep using this added layer of protection, the company said in a statement. Above all, we hope you'll treat each other with kindness and respect throughout the travel journey and beyond. The airline touched on the topic of guest spend from traveling when the federal mask policy was in effect. Based on our reports, we will have some guests whose behavior was particularly egregious who will remain banned, even after the mask policy is rescinded, it said. JetBlue Airlines breaking news emails. JetBlue said mask wearing will now be optional and customers and crew are welcome to continue wearing them. Those traveling internationally should always have a mask with them in case they continue to be required at their destination, it said. American Airlines face masks will no longer be required for our customers and team members at U.S. airports and on domestic flights, American Airlines announced, noting that masks may still be required based on local ordinances and may differ when traveling to and from certain international locations. In keeping with our commitment to creating a welcoming environment for everyone who travels with us, customers and team members may choose to continue to wear masks at their own discretion. Southwest Airlines Southwest said employees and customers will be able to choose whether they would like to wear a mask on flights, adding, "We encourage individuals to make the best decision to support their personal well-being." Southwest noted that it would continue supporting travelers by offering additional layers of protection including its cabin air ventilation systems with HEPA air filtration. Frontier Airlines masks are now optional on domestic flights, however, certain airports or countries may still require masks, so check the policy at your destination prior to departure and we'll see you in the sky, Frontier Airlines tweeted. Mixed reactions at airports, ground systems. While the skies will see more flexible mask rules, on the ground, some rail and bus systems won't. Recommended. World judge sends Assange extradition decision to UK government. Culture Matters. Dee Robertson, wife of televangelist Pat Robertson, dies at 94. New York City's MTA system will keep masks in place under state regulations, as will Chicago's CTA, the Bay Area's BART, and Los Angeles LA Metro systems. However, in New Jersey, Gov. Phil Murphy said Tuesday morning masks won't be required on NJ Transit. Washington, D.C.'s public transit agency MTA also moved to make masks optional effective immediately Monday night. Amtrak said passengers and employees are no longer required to wear masks on trains or in stations. The Philadelphia International Airport said masks must still be worn inside the airport's terminals in compliance with the governor's indoor mask requirement. San Francisco's International Airport said they were awaiting further guidance from the TSA Monday and would continue with masks in the meantime.
Next, an article on NBCnews.com, which was referred to in one of the previous articles, and that's from April 18th, 2022.
CDC mask mandate for planes, trains no longer in effect after judge rules it unlawful. The federal judge in Florida struck down the CDC's requirement that all travelers wear masks on airplanes, buses, trains and other modes of public transportation. 008/01:23, tap to unmute link copied April 18, 2022, 8:21 p.m. CEST, updated April 19, 2022, 6:25 a.m. CEST by Aria Bantix, Pete Williams, Daniel Barnes and David K. Lee. A federal judge Monday struck down the Biden administration's mandate that masks be worn aboard planes, trains, buses and other public transportation, leading to an immediate change in policy for air travelers and many rail customers. U.S. District Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell for the Middle District of Florida called the policy unlawful and ruled that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention had overstepped its legal authority by imposing the mandate in February 2021. The mask requirement violates the procedures required for agency rulemaking, according to Mizell's ruling from Tampa, Florida. A short time later, the White House said the decision means CDC's public transportation masking order is not in effect at this time. The CDC had renewed the travel mask mandate several times, most recently extending it through May 3. Because of Monday's ruling, a Biden administration official said, TSA will not enforce its security directives and emergency amendment requiring mask use on public transportation and transportation hubs at this time. Airlines for America, a trade association representing major North American airlines, seemed to welcome the ruling, but couldn't speak for its individual members. U.S. airlines have been strong advocates for eliminating pandemic-era policies and are encouraged by the lifting of the federal transportation mask mandate, the group said. Several airlines, including United, Delta, American and Alaska, issued statements saying masks are now optional. Amtrak also said masks would no longer be required on trains. The plaintiffs in the lawsuit are two women, Anna Carolina Daza and Sarah Pope, along with the Health Freedom Defense Fund, a Wyoming nonprofit group that has challenged COVID vaccine and mask mandates in other parts of the country. The suit alleged that the CDC mandate was arbitrary and capricious, since it gave exemptions to certain groups, like children under 2 years old, but not others.
So I'm not going to do the video with that, but I'll put the links in the description, so then people can check all these articles for themselves. Remember to check my channel, Play, and also Perfect Society, of course, about creating a perfect society in which we all will live happily eternally, possible because everything is energy. Okay, so that's it for this broadcast. Thank you all for watching, and please like, share, subscribe, and spread the important information for a better future for yourself, for your fellow humans. And have a wonderful day, have an awesome one. Kiss for single ladies who'd like one. And see you next time on this channel, YouTube channel by the name of Play. I'm Ulrich Hoffman. And remember, you can also get that mask exemption card and wear a face shield. I see nobody wearing a face shield here. What's going on? So, see you next time on Play. I'm Ulrich Hoffman. May peace be with you all.